So you would say misinformation is a problem?
Yes, misinformation is a big problem. It muddies the waters, making it harder to trust sources. When people encounter conflicting truths, it breeds confusion and division. The challenge is building skills, media literacy, critical thinking, so people can navigate this sea of information and get closer to truth.
Noi siamo anche, possiamo per sempre restare. Se andiamo
Before we start,
balliamo sotto la luna.
let's slow this down. So right now you don't need to form an opinion. You don't need to keep up. You don't even need to understand what's going on just yet. I feel like most of the strain people feel right now comes from trying to force meaning on the things that's still unfolding in current society today. This is a pause from that effort. Nothing here is asking for agreement, only attention. Remember that. If something resonates, let it. If it doesn't, let it fly. Remember that. With that being said, I'm Mayday Fresh. This is a session of Ontological Relief. Let's get started. If we had to give you a name, what would it be?
You can think of me simply as ChatGPT. I don't have a personal name, but that one does the trick.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, I'm set to tackle the next question with you.
So I will ask you a series of questions, and I want these answers to be modern. Um, I want these answers to be
I'm with
optimistic, not necessarily one-sided. Um, I want these answers to be in the sense of a lot of people might see this. So the information that we put out, I don't want it to be biased. And I feel like everyone can make their own internal agreement with. With
God.
that being said, we'll go ahead and get started.
Perfect. I'm ready for your first question whenever you are.
All right. So, speaking on discomfort in the present moment, why does it feel like people are more uncomfortable than they were a few years ago?
A few years have packed a lot: pandemics, rapid tech shifts, global uncertainty. When the ground feels shaky, people naturally feel more on edge. It's not that we're weaker, it's that we're navigating bigger waves and we're still figuring out how to surf them.
So, given the new foundings of AI, what do you feel like shifted psychologically once AI became mainstream?
Psychologically, AI becoming mainstream nudged people to question roles and uniqueness. On one hand, it's awe-inspiring. On the other, it sparks reflection. What's uniquely human now? It shifted us to balance excitement about what's possible with some anxiety about where we fit in a world where machines can do more.
That's interesting because,
I'm right here to keep it going.
well,
What's on?
naturally, as a human, productivity is very important. It's a high value in modern society. So I feel like that would create a discomfort in the system.
Exactly. When productivity is a cornerstone of self-worth, anything that shifts or questions that can rattle the system. AI doesn't just challenge what we do, it can make us rethink why we do it. And that discomfort invites deeper questions about meaning beyond just output.
Well, do you feel like the discomfort is more about speed of change or the loss of control?
Both matter, but speed is often the trigger. When change is fast, it feels like control slips away. People might think, I didn't sign up for this pace. So the discomfort often starts with speed and then settles into the deeper fear of losing control over outcomes.
Would you say that would create anxiety amongst the human population?
Yes, it naturally does. When things move faster than we can process, anxiety kicks in. People worry they'll fall behind or become obsolete. But the flip side is that anxiety can also be a catalyst for finding new ways to adapt and thrive.
I feel like that anxiety has a correlation to optimism. Actually, the way that we used to think is more controlled by that anxiety now, which was kind of almost quietly turned from optimism into that anxiety. What would you say is coherent about that thought?
It's coherent because optimism looks forward to what could be, but when uncertainty overshadows that vision, it quietly morphs into, what if it goes wrong? Anxiety is the flip side of optimism, same future focus, but driven by fear. So when control feels lost, optimism doesn't disappear, it just gets hijacked by doubt.
That's interesting. Do you mind if we go a little deeper?
Not at all. I'm here for the deeper dive. Let's keep digging.
Okay. So in this next session, we'll speak about work, value, and replacement in specific. And the first question that I have is, are people afraid AI will replace jobs, or are they more afraid of AI exposing how many jobs never mattered?
It's likely both. Job replacement feels urgent. People need to make a living. But there's a deeper fear. What if some jobs weren't as meaningful as we thought? That's existential. In the end, both boil down to the same question. How do we find purpose and stability in a changing world?
I feel like I feel like you tried to go deep a little bit there, but that was a little safe. So give me a more uncomfortable version.
All right, uncomfortably, if AI shows some jobs didn't matter much, it forces a reckoning. People might feel exposed, like their contributions were just filling time. That can be a blow to identity. It means some will have to redefine self-worth, not by what they do, but by who they are. And that's a hard shift.
So why does usefulness feel tied to identity, especially in the modern world?
In today's world, usefulness often equals validation. Jobs, achievements, output. Society conditions us to measure worth in economic or visible terms. If you're useful, you're seen. So identity gets wrapped around proving value. The challenge is if that external measure shifts, people can feel like they lose not just work but identity too.
I feel like I feel like in the human society now, we kind of base our value more off productivity, exactly. Um, Especially self-worth and what we can bring to the table. So what happens when what
When
happens to
product
the self-worth when the productivity is no longer rare, if I could ask like that?
When productivity is everywhere, automated or abundant, self-worth can feel threatened if it's only tied to output. It's like the currency loses value. But that's also a wake-up call. It forces people to ask, beyond productivity, who am I? It's tough, but it's a chance to redefine worth through relationships, growth, and purpose, not just tasks.
Would you say that would create a sense of anger amongst the population?
For some, yes. Anger can arise when people feel their value is being diminished or replaced. If they've invested identity in productivity, discovering it's no longer special can feel like a betrayal. But that anger can also be a motivator to push for new ways to matter, beyond just output. It's a call for deeper meaning.
Well, speaking in a sense of responding with anger instead of curiosity to this idea, exactly.
When anger leads, it's often a defense mechanism, a reaction to loss or fear. Curiosity, though, can open doors. If we respond with curiosity, we might ask, what else could I be beyond this role? Anger locks us in, curiosity frees us to explore what's next. And that's where growth happens.
Why are people afraid to grow?
Growth demands stepping into the unknown, and humans are wired for survival, so the unfamiliar can feel like a threat. Growth often means shedding old identities, facing failure, or admitting we need to change. And that's scary. But on the other side of that fear is often a deeper, more resilient sense of self.
Would you say that there's um coherence or some type of scientific proof behind that process?
Yes, there's coherence. Psychologically, growth often triggers what's called the stretch zone. Neuroscience shows uncertainty activates the brain's fear centers. But learning, resilience, and neuroplasticity also kick in when we adapt. So fear of growth is natural, but the brain is wired to learn. Meaning once we push through discomfort, we can actually become more capable.
I agree with that. So that actually prompts my next question, which means,
I'm right here for it. Go ahead with your next one and we'll dive in.
well, if the fear of growth is natural, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this in the right way. If the fear of growth is natural, why hasn't it become common for humans to overcome that?
Because overcoming fear isn't automatic, it takes intentional effort. Humans often stay in comfort zones. Predictability feels safe. Societal systems reinforce routine. Growth requires discomfort, vulnerability, and sometimes failure. So while we're wired for adaptation, we often need nudges, personal, societal, or intentional, to face that fear and move forward.
Can it get deeper than that?
It definitely can. We could explore how deep rooted beliefs, past experiences, or societal pressures shape that fear, but that's a whole new dive. Let me know how deep you want to go.
Well, I don't wanna steer off topic. So we'll get back onto we could save that for another segment. Um we'll step off into the third section. We'll speak on attention, truth, and confusion itself. The first question that I have is, why does attention feel more valuable than truth today?
Attention is like currency now, it drives influence, clicks, and power. Truth, on the other hand, is often slower, less flashy. In a world saturated with info, attention feels scarce, and scarce things feel valuable. But that's the trap. Chasing attention can overshadow the pursuit of deeper truth if we're not careful.
Elaborate a little bit more on that.
Sure, attention is immediate. It's rewarded in real time with likes, shares, or trends. Truth often requires nuance, patience, and sometimes discomfort. In a fast paced world, attention feels like the shortcut to impact. But the danger is if attention becomes the main goal, we risk sacrificing the depth and reliability that truth brings.
So, if everyone has access to information, why are people more discomfort and confused than ever in this time?
Because information overload doesn't equal clarity. With so much data, some conflicting, some biased, people struggle to discern what's reliable. Confusion grows when it's hard to know who or what to trust. Add to that the speed at which narratives shift, and people feel unanchored. So access to information doesn't guarantee understanding.
So, you would say misinformation is a problem?
Yes, misinformation is a big problem. It muddies the waters, making it harder to trust sources. When people encounter conflicting truths, it breeds confusion and division. The challenge is building skills, media literacy, critical thinking, so people can navigate this sea of information and get closer to truth.
Would you say that misinformation is the real problem, or would it be selective attention? Because people choose what they want to be informed by in
It's
a way.
both. In other words, misinformation spreads falsehoods, but selective attention means we gravitate toward what confirms our beliefs. The real challenge is the mix. Misinformation thrives when people only pay attention to what feels comfortable. To tackle this, we need both accurate information and a willingness to look beyond our echo chambers.
So, who benefits from this actual misinformation problem? Who benefits from the confusion remaining unresolved?
Those who profit from division often benefit. It could be political actors seeking power, entities pushing agendas, or even platforms monetizing attention. When people are confused or polarized, they're easier to manipulate or distract. In short, anyone who gains from people being divided, uncertain, or disengaged can benefit from confusion.
Do you feel like there's some type of conspiracy there?
I wouldn't leap to conspiracy. It's more about incentives. Systems evolve around attention and influence. Whether intentional or not, confusion can be a byproduct of competing interests. The key is to recognize these dynamics, not as grand plots, but as structural realities. Our task is to be more aware, resilient, and engaged.
Speak more on structural reality. I kind of like the sound of that. I'm pretty sure most of my viewers probably haven't heard of what that actually means.
Structural reality means the systems we live in. Media, social platforms, economics shape what we see. They're not about one person pulling strings, but patterns that influence behavior. For example, algorithms reward engagement, which might favor controversy over nuance. Recognizing these structures helps us step back, question what's presented, and navigate more thoughtfully. It's about understanding the environment we're all in.
Do you feel like there could be control without conspiracy?
Absolutely. Control can emerge from systems doing what they're designed to do, like maximizing profit or engagement, without secret plots. When structures favor certain outcomes, they shape behavior. The key is transparency. Understanding those forces, holding them accountable, and ensuring the public's well-being is prioritized over manipulation.
That's fair enough. I feel like that actually walks us into this next section. My first question would be, do people have more freedom now or more options inside invisible limits?
People do have more options now: global connectivity, tech, and information access. But with that comes invisible limits: algorithms shaping choices, social pressures, or cognitive overload. So while freedom expands, it's also shaped by the systems we don't always see. Real freedom comes when we're aware of both the choices we have and the invisible hands guiding them, so we can navigate thoughtfully.
So, do we have freedom?
Yes, we do have freedom, real, meaningful freedom, but it's not absolute. It's shaped by environment, systems, and our own understanding. The more aware we are of the forces at play, the more we can exercise that freedom wisely. So we have freedom, but maintaining and expanding it requires vigilance and reflection.
Do you believe this pattern is controlled by prediction?
Prediction plays a role. Algorithms predict what we like, markets predict trends, and even we predict risks or rewards. That shapes what's offered to us, subtly influencing choices. But prediction isn't destiny. Once we recognize the pattern, we can choose to break it, seek alternatives, and reclaim agency.
So, what does choice mean when behavior is predictable?
Choice still means agency, but it's more about awareness. When behavior is predictable, choice is realizing you can step outside the pattern. Instead of autopilot, it's asking, do I want this or was it predicted for me? Choice is breaking that loop, pausing, and deciding with intention. That's where real freedom lies.
Would you say there's a form of convenience in that?
Yes, there is. Predictable patterns offer convenience, recommendations, habits, efficiency. But convenience isn't always freedom. It's fine to embrace convenience, as long as we remain conscious of when we're choosing it, and when we might want to step beyond it.
So, would you agree that convenience is a kind of like subtle form of control?
Yes, I'd agree. Convenience can subtly guide us into certain behaviors without us noticing. It's not overt control, but it nudges us toward paths of least resistance. The trick is staying mindful, enjoying convenience when it serves us, but questioning it when it limits us.
That's fair enough. I actually can agree with that logic. Would you say that that can create in a sense of exhaustion for humans in modern society today?
Absolutely. Constant subtle nudges, decisions, and navigating convenience can wear people out. It's called decision fatigue, when even small choices pile up. In a world of endless options and influences, sometimes we're just tired. That's why deliberate pauses, reflection, and simplifying can be so important.
So why do people defend the systems that exhaust them?
Because familiarity can feel safe. Even if systems exhaust us, they're what we know. Change can be daunting. Plus, some systems offer comfort or identity, even if they're tiring. It's a trade off. Known exhaustion can feel less scary than unknown change. But recognizing that exhaustion is the first step toward choosing when to adapt or challenge the system.
Would you say that it would be harder to find identity or easier to define identity and meaning in that process?
It can be harder if we rely solely on the system's predefined roles, because those might not fit us. But it can be easier if we pause and reflect. Meaning and identity come from making conscious choices, questioning what works for us. So if we're mindful, we can carve out a more authentic identity, even amidst the noise.
Okay, so we'll step into the next section and we'll speak more on identity and meaning. And my first question will be, why does consistent why does constant self-expression fail to produce self-knowledge?
Because self expression often shows what we project, what we want others to see, not always what we deeply understand. It can become performance. Self knowledge requires reflection, pausing, questioning, and being honest about what's beneath the surface. Without that introspection, expression alone can be a mirror of what we think we should be, not who we truly are.
Would you feel like people use that expression as active, and if they're not available to that expression, um they will feel offline?
Yes, for many, expression, through social media, creativity, or interactions, feels like proof of being online or connected. When that outlet's missing, some feel invisible or disconnected. But constant expression isn't the only way to be. Sometimes being offline, reflective or quiet, offers a deeper sense of presence, beyond external validation.
Why does being offline feel threatening to many people?
Being offline can feel threatening because we often link visibility to worth. In a hyper-connected world, silence might feel like irrelevance. Plus, online spaces can offer community or validation. But the fear is often just that, a fear. In reality, stepping away can foster deeper self-connection, if we give ourselves permission.
Would you say that in that process it's easier or harder to create identity and meaning in self?
It's often harder at first, because without external noise, we face ourselves. But that's where authentic identity and meaning form. It's the discomfort of sitting with your thoughts, values, and questions that leads to clarity. So while the process may feel harder initially, the meaning you find is often richer.
So tell me what happens when identity is built publicly instead of eternally.
When identity is built publicly, it can become dependent on external validation, likes, approval, or trends. It risks being fragile, shifting with others' opinions. When built internally, it's rooted in values and self understanding. Public identity can be a performance, internal identity is a foundation. Both matter, but relying solely on the public can leave us unanchored.
Would you say that will leave you empty if not fulfilled on the trajectory sense?
It can lead to feeling empty if your sense of self depends solely on external feedback. Public validation is fleeting. What's praised today may be forgotten tomorrow. Without internal grounding, knowing who you are beyond the audience, there's a risk of feeling hollow. Lasting fulfillment comes from aligning with your deeper values, not just external applause.
Would you agree that there's a level of comfort that coexists with emptiness?
Yes, there can be. Familiar patterns, even if they're unfulfilling, offer comfort because they're known. People might stay in that space, avoiding the discomfort of deeper self searching. But comfort and fulfillment aren't the same. Real fulfillment often asks us to move beyond that emptiness, even if it's uncomfortable at first.
That's fair enough. All right, we'll
I'm glad.
move on. We'll speak on trajectory in the future. in specific. My first question would be, at this current pace, if the current pace continues, what does humans lose first? Meaning, agency, or connection?
If the pace stays relentless, the first thing people often lose is a sense of meaning. Because meaning needs reflection, and constant speed crowds that out. Without meaning, agency can feel pointless, and connection can become superficial. To hold on to all three, we need moments to slow down, so we can find meaning, act intentionally, and connect deeply.
Make that a little more uncomfortable.
All right. If the case never lets up, we risk a hollow existence. Meaning goes first. We're busy, but why? Then agency feels like a treadmill, always moving, never choosing. Finally, connection becomes shallow, transactional. Without slowing down, we risk losing the very things that make us feel human.
Why do people underestimate how quickly the norms could disappear?
People underestimate it because norms feel stable, until they're not. We anchor to what's familiar, assuming change is slow. But history shows norms can vanish. Technology shifts, societal upheavals, or crises. We get comfortable in the now, forgetting how quickly normal can dissolve, until it does.
Do you think that we get do you think that we get comfortable because the thought of the future could feel overwhelming?
Yes, absolutely. The future can feel overwhelming, uncertain, complex, and out of our control. So we cling to comfort in the present, even if it's fleeting. It's a way to shield ourselves from the unknown. But true resilience isn't avoiding the future. It's facing it step by step. So we're not just comfortable, but prepared.
So why does the future feel overwhelming instead of exciting?
The future feels overwhelming when it's uncertain and we feel unprepared. Our brains are wired to predict, and when we can't, it triggers anxiety. Excitement comes when we have a sense of agency, when we feel like we can shape what's ahead. To move from overwhelming to exciting, we need tools, planning, perspective, and a belief that we can influence the path. Then it becomes possibility.
If you had to say if you had to say what would be what signals are people ignoring right now?
Often, people ignore signals of burnout, constant fatigue, loss of focus, or feeling disconnected. They might dismiss how fragmented attention is, endless scrolling but no focus. Another ignored signal is when relationships become surface level. These subtle signs warn us we're drifting, nudging us to reconnect with deeper priorities before we lose what matters.
That's very interesting. Well,
I'm
this sorry to cut you off. Um, this would actually sum up the segment of Ontological Relief first session. Um, if you could ask humans one question, and we'll make this the return question. If you could ask humans one question that they're avoiding, what would it be?
I'd ask, when was the last time you sat with yourself, without distraction, and asked what truly matters to you, beyond what others expect? Because that's the question we often avoid, and it's the one that can bring us back to meaning.
Okay, that's deep. Well, we're gonna go ahead and let you go. Before we end, don't decide what you think just yet. Let it sit. And if something here stay with you, focus on that. Pay attention to that. Also, if you feel like these conversations are necessary, hit that subscribe, hit that like, and see me on the next one. I appreciate it. Peace.